Hey friend, please subscribe. 1 second for you. Big deal for me.
He wasn't even trying to hide it. That's what stung the most. Russell Nelson, my dad, standing outside the feed store, hand on some woman's lower back like he owned her. She was laughing too loud, leaning in too close, wearing a pink jacket that didn't belong in any aisle of livestock feed. And he looked right at her like Mom had never existed. That was at 3:30 on a Thursday. By midnight, everyone in Pine Hill knew. Quick note. Before we start, tell us in the comments which city or country you're listening from. Let's see which corners of the world we've gathered from today. Thanks. And now the story. My name's Brody. I was 16 then, old enough to know how fast a family can split down the middle. We lived in a 2-bedroom apartment above Tanner's Pharmacy, quiet street, louder whispers. I was the oldest, me, then Carter, and I was the one who kept things steady when Dad blew it all up. Mom didn't scream. Nicole Nelson never raised her voice if she could cut deeper with silence. She folded his things into 2 suitcases, shirts still warm from the dryer, zipped them shut, and set them by the door. Then she told him he could still see us, but not here. Not anymore. Then she ironed a blouse, just ironed, like it was any other Tuesday. After that, I found her on the kitchen floor, back against the wall, crying into both hands like she didn't know what to do with all that hurt. That first week was brutal. The house sounded wrong. Too much space, too many echoes, no sound of his boots thunking against the doorframe, no dumb Elvis songs from the bathroom. The hall rack looked empty without his giant jacket swallowing up a whole hook. I remember Carter asking if we were still a family. I told him yes, because someone had to. We spent the first night at Grandpa Williams' place. He was Mom's dad, William Carter, used to be a print guy at the town paper. Retouched photos with a grease pencil back when that meant something. He didn't ask what happened. Just made us tea, put extra blankets on the couch, and let Mom sit there like she was somewhere safe. That mattered. A month later, the apartment across the hall, 3B, got rented out. I was on the steps eating a granola bar when the moving truck coughed to a stop outside. Chairs came out first, then a lamp shaped like a dancer, boxes with duct tape all over them. The door swung open, and there she was, Tess Perry. Big earrings, long dress, hair up in a wild twist like she didn't care what people thought. And behind her was Grace, red hair, sharp eyes, same age as me, give or take. She didn't smile like she was being polite. She smiled like she already knew the punchline to a joke I hadn't heard yet. Tess got Mom talking. About dance classes. About shaking off the old. Mom smiled in a way I hadn't seen since before Dad torched our life. They made lasagna that night and brought it over. Raspberry pie, too. Tess raised a glass and said, "To change." And Mom said it right back, like she meant it. I didn't like it. I didn't want some new setup, some new rhythm. But Grace started walking to school with me like we'd always done that. She talked a lot, about numbers and logic and patterns, asked what I noticed even when I didn't say anything. I didn't answer much at first. I was used to observing, not joining in. But she kept showing up, and Mom stopped looking like she might shatter when the phone rang. Our house didn't feel like a crime scene anymore, not with Tess lighting incense and humming old records, not with Grace making lists and asking real questions. Back then, I decided I'd be the guy who noticed everything and said almost nothing. The calm one, the one who didn't shake when things cracked. Looking back now, that worked. Until it didn't. The shelf creaked when I stood up to reach for it. Grandpa's camera sat in a dented leather case, the kind that smelled like basement air and newspaper ink. Heavy. Old. Honest. I hadn't touched it in almost a year, not since I gave up trying to save for film that cost more than lunch. I was just holding it, turning it over in my hands, when Grace leaned into the doorway like she'd been waiting for the right moment. "Why'd you quit?" she asked, arms crossed, already sure it wasn't for a good reason. "Money," I said. "Film costs, prints. It adds up." She tilted her head like I'd missed something obvious. Then get the money, she said, like I'd just told her it was raining and she'd handed me an umbrella. I laughed, dry and short. Right, just get the money. She didn't move, just opened her folder, pulled out a piece of paper, and handed it to me. 3 columns, shifts, tips, progress to camera. Grace Perry didn't wait around hoping things would happen. She made a plan, taped it up, and dared the world to ignore it. "Are you in?" she asked, not blinking. That Monday, we both started working the summer shift at Jax's Coffee. She took register. I took dish pit and cleanup. I kept to myself. Grace smiled like she meant it, even when customers didn't look up from their phones. By the 3rd day, she taped a white index card to the tip jar in her best block lettering. "For Brody's first camera," it said. I told her to take it down. She didn't. "If someone doesn't want a tip, they won't," she said, not even looking at me. "But people like backing something real." She was right. I hated how fast she was right. The first day we put it up, we got $12 in tips. By the end of the week, over 80. Then Grandpa handed me a little envelope. Inside were 12 prints. Black and white, a little faded, mostly shots from the park and the local fair, people mid-laugh or lost in thought. "These were yours," he said. "You forgot them. If anyone asks, show them." I carried them around in a sandwich bag tucked in my apron pocket. Most folks didn't ask. But one Thursday afternoon, a man in a slate gray suit came in, ordered an espresso, and looked straight at the tip jar, then at me. "You any good?" he asked. Grace didn't hesitate, reached under the counter, pulled out the little prints, and handed them over like she was selling gold. He looked through them slow, said nothing. Then he folded 350s and 320s into the jar. "Keep going," he said. Then he left. $240. Just like that. We hit the $1,000 mark by the end of August. Tips, extra shifts, mowing jobs I hated, and a raffle Tess ran at her dance class where the prize was 1 free lesson and a pie. I scraped together another $230 from yards nobody wanted to touch, gravel patches, weeds as tall as my waist. I bought a used mirrorless camera with a fast 50mm lens. The first time I clicked the shutter, it hit like a seatbelt across the chest. Sudden, tight, and real. That night, Grace brought over a new chart, labeled shots per week. She set a goal, 750 frames by Labor Day. "That's insane," I told her. She grinned. "You're stubborn. Prove it." I hit 803, because I'm not built to stop short once someone believes in me. When I showed Mom the camera, she raised her eyebrows but didn't smile. "Just finish school first," she said. "I will," I told her. And I meant it. I owed her that much, even if I knew I'd already handed my heart over to the viewfinder. That fall, I stopped taking pictures of people smiling on cue. I started shooting the in-betweens, the edges, light on broken sidewalks, steam curling from manholes, kids racing grocery carts through the Food Lion lot at dusk, a man holding a bag of lemons like they were made of glass. Grace came with me most weekends. She didn't ask me to explain what I shot. She just asked one question. "What's the story here?" Sometimes I didn't know. Sometimes I lied. But eventually, I started answering. Not just with words, with the pictures, with the silence between the shots, and with the way her voice made me pause, focus, and click. I stayed close to home and called it a plan. Philology sounded like something a guy in a blazer might say at a dinner party. I was 18, and it sounded just serious enough to make Mom exhale. So I signed up at the state college, put my name on the roster, and started showing up. I didn't fake passion. I just did what I was supposed to. Clean papers, deadlines met, no excuses. It felt like a quiet apology for making her worry too long. Grace picked finance. That made sense. She liked order, logic, numbers that stayed where you left them. She called it boring but stable. I watched her crack open spreadsheets like puzzles and color code problems until they gave up. She took a part-time job at the campus library too. She liked labeling things, said it helped her sleep. I believed her. I shot nights and weekends, weddings mostly, moms crying in church basements, groomsmen trying to be funny. I took family photos around Christmas, traded packages for gift cards more than cash. I did senior portraits where the real fight wasn't with the light, it was with Pinterest boards and unrealistic expectations. Those shoots paid rent, but they drained me. They weren't my vision. They were someone else's playlist. I smiled, nodded, clicked, and gave them what they asked for. Then I started carving out 2 hours every Sunday. No clients, no boards, no filters, just whatever called out. Alley light, graffiti walls, fog lifting off the river. One Sunday, Grandpa took me downtown to the old print shop where he used to set type. Said he wanted to show me something. The place looked closed, but the lights were on behind dusty glass. While he pointed at a cabinet of old letters, a boy pressed his nose to the window. I didn't think, just lifted the camera and fired off 3 frames through the glass. Caught the reflection of Grandpa's hand mid-point, the kid's breath on the glass, and the metal type behind them. I didn't edit it much, just cleaned the crop, adjusted shadows, and sent it off to the River County juried show. Blind jury, no names, no bios, just the work. Weeks passed. I forgot about it. Then I got the email. I'd won the documentary category. Prize was $3,500. I didn't shout, didn't run around. I just called Grandpa. "Good," he said. Then paused and added, "Don't get cute. Stay true." That hit harder than any award speech. Mom saw the article in the local paper and didn't say much, but she stopped clipping teacher job listings. She still circled them, but the pages stayed in the living room, not my pillow. That was her version of letting go a little. I started a small workshop on Wednesday nights at the rec center. Nothing fancy. Couple high school kids, 2 retirees, one exhausted chef on his split shift who said photography kept him from losing his mind. William came twice, walked in like he had something to check on. A quiet 6th grader showed him a photo of a lake, and Grandpa just squinted and said, "Your horizon's drunk. Fix it." The kid laughed and adjusted his angle. That was the whole lesson. Grace kept working her analyst track like a machine, always sharp, always early. She dated here and there, nobody serious. She'd mention a name over coffee, and I'd nod like it didn't matter. But every time I heard a new name, I felt it. That quiet hit to the stomach like I'd missed a step in the dark. She never rubbed it in. Said things like, "He's smart," or "We'll see." I never asked for details, and she never offered any. We had a rule, unspoken but firm, stay in our lanes. I'd finish the degree clean. She'd chase her career. Neither of us said the part we both knew. Don't crash into each other unless you're sure you'll survive it. On nights when we both worked late, we'd meet at the all-night diner by the bypass, sit in a booth with 2 mugs and a plate of fries between us. She'd tell me about models that didn't balance, and I'd talk about color curves that didn't land. It wasn't romantic, but it was more than nothing. One night she slid a flyer across the table. "You should teach a real class," she said, "not just the rec center." "Maybe after the degree," I said, already knowing I wouldn't wait that long. We both sipped our coffee. Neither of us looked up for a long time. I kept shooting on my own terms. Got a lucky 2nd place in a state fair contest with a shot of a truck stop lit up at 3 in the morning. Grace framed it for me. Didn't say much, just handed it over one day and said, "Put this where you'll see it on bad days." I did, right above my desk, next to the degree I was still pretending to chase. We weren't together, but we weren't apart either. There was a tension there, like a photo that won't quite focus, no matter how much you adjust. I was still filing papers and submitting projects, but my heart was out in alleys and old shops, chasing stories most people walked past. She kept showing up, though, with charts, with questions, with her stupid quiet belief that I could do more than I thought. Grace kept showing up, and I kept letting her, even when I knew I was leaning too far in. But then came the city. Bigger walls, colder lights, louder everything. I moved for work. A gallery job downtown, 2 floors up from a florist that always smelled like cold leaves and potpourri that never sold. Rent was steep, the air was dry, and for the first few months I lived like someone who hadn't unpacked yet. I was still chasing frames more than furniture. 4 years after college, my photo series, small, quiet, nothing loud, got a corner at the Wilton Gallery. I was standing near the exit, trying not to sweat through my button-down, when she walked in, and the room seemed to reframe itself around her. Angela Mitchell. She was tall, maybe 5'10", in black from neck to ankles, walked like she'd memorized the rhythm of her heels. She didn't check her phone, didn't smile out of obligation. She moved with that sharp stillness I'd only ever seen in dancers or wolves. People noticed her before they even looked. She stopped in front of one of mine, a woman smoking behind a diner, rain light on the glass, her face half hidden. Angela didn't smile, just stared. "You see people," she said finally, eyes locked on the frame like she was appraising a diamond, checking for cracks. Not just what they pose as. That should have been my warning. I took it as a compliment. We shot twice that week. No assistants, no makeup teams. Just her in alleys, near neon, in wind so sharp I could feel it in my teeth. She never flinched, never blinked when the flash popped. She moved like she'd memorized her own silhouette. My focus slipped between beats. "Do you want direction?" I asked during the second shoot, trying to sound like I knew what I was doing. Angela raised an eyebrow. "Not unless I'm wrong," she said. She wasn't. Coffee turned into dinner. Dinner turned into more. 2 months later, I was walking to work and realizing she was the headline in my head I couldn't stop reading. "You're steady," she said one night on my couch, her knees tucked under her, voice low like she was handing over a secret. "You're relentless," I told her. She took it like a compliment. Maybe it was. Grace found out through Tess, of course. She texted me a simple, "Happy for you," and asked if I wanted to do a double dinner. I said sure. She brought Donald Turner, librarian, early 30s, decent handshake, eyes level, nothing false about him. Special collections at the County Historical Society. He talked slow, like he actually listened before answering. I liked him. Angela wore black again. Grace and Donald showed up in soft colors, pale blue, warm beige. They looked like they'd been together a while, even though I knew they hadn't. Dinner was tight smiles and borrowed stories. Angela carried most of it. She told a polished story about a runway show in Milan, slipped the beats in like a well-rehearsed monologue. Donald leaned in and asked about my print shop series, remembered a shot I'd posted years back. Grace barely ate. She watched Angela like someone studying ice for cracks. Angela smiled at Donald like he was part of the furniture. She thanked him for the compliment, but didn't ask his name. At one point, I scraped my fork too hard against the plate. That sound felt louder than it should have. Walking out, Donald turned to Angela and said, "There's one shot of you I really liked. You weren't posed. It was just you, leaning against a door, laughing at something." Angela tilted her head like she was being polite. "Which one?" He described it, beat for beat. Her hair was down, light from a kitchen window, mid-laugh. She didn't remember it. In the Uber, she leaned her head against my shoulder like we were normal. "I'm tired of being on," she whispered. I believed her. I also realized in that moment, she didn't know how to be off. A week later, she moved a toothbrush into my place, then a garment rack, then half her wardrobe. I cleared a drawer without being asked. Told myself this was what grown-up relationships looked like. Shared closets, split rent, takeout 3 nights a week. Grace texted me a meme the day after Angela moved in. Nothing serious, just something dumb about old cameras and bad exposures. I laughed, didn't reply. Angela started calling me the calm. Said I centered her, that I wasn't like the others, that I didn't chase her spotlight, and that made me different. It felt like praise. It was probably a warning. We got into a rhythm. Gallery openings, branded shoots, nights where she was too wired to sit still. I let her pace. I let her be the show. I didn't ask for quiet. I didn't ask for more. Grace invited us to a fundraiser a month later. Book preservation, of course. Donald was chairing it. Angela showed up late in a silk jumpsuit that made heads turn and tongues trip. She didn't mean to outshine the room. She just didn't know how not to. Grace came over during the silent auction. "You good?" she asked. "I think so," I said. She nodded like that answer had holes in it. Later that night, Angela told me she was booked for back-to-back shoots in Chicago and Indianapolis. 2 weeks. 3 hotel changes. I said I'd miss her, and I meant it. She kissed me on the cheek and said, "Be steady." I told her, "Be real," but I don't think she heard it. Angela called it classic. The barn, the linen, the invite fonts. She said it all felt grounded, and her team nodded like they'd planned it themselves. 9 months after that first gallery corner, we signed at the courthouse and threw a reception at a refurbished barn Tess swore had the best dance floor in the county. The lighting was warm, the caterer wore flannel, and people called it elegant with that pause before the word like they weren't sure it applied. I told myself it was only static. I told myself a lot of things. She was 31. I was 27. That gap showed in places. Her phone always buzzing, my shoes always scuffed. But we smiled through it. People said we made sense. Ambition plus calm, fire plus foundation. I nodded like I agreed. The honeymoon was a week by the water. Cold sand, paperback books, pancakes too big for one plate. I shot her with a camera I didn't bring for work. She covered her face with her book and yelled, "No photos!" But her feet were still sandy, and she laughed. I looked at the ring on my hand and felt 20 kinds of lucky. Work picked up fast. I started turning down shoots that didn't line up. I wanted projects that said something. She booked campaigns and fashion covers. She did a dating app ad I hated. The concept was empty. The lighting was loud. "It's a job," she said, kissing my cheek like punctuation. I told her I didn't like it. She told me I didn't have to. At events, I'd watch the air shift when she walked in. Heads turned as if the center of the room had moved. I used to think that was power. Over time, it felt more like noise. People looked through me to get to her. At first, I didn't mind. Then I noticed I was shrinking. At home, she stayed on. Even in sweatpants, even while brushing her teeth, she held posture like a casting director was watching. Stillness made her restless. I'd ask soft questions. "What was your favorite moment today?" And she'd pivot to weather or press. I started talking less. My words bounced off her like static. Grace got a promotion at the firm. Donald started curating a small exhibit on the history of local printing. We met up for tacos to celebrate. Me and Angela, Grace and Donald. They sat across from each other like bookends. Polite, steady, a little too practiced. Angela complimented the salsa and took a call halfway through dinner. Donald didn't blink. Afterward, I walked Grace to her car. I told her I felt like I was married to an image. She didn't flinch, just said, "Then stop photographing the image." That one landed sharp. I started thinking about resets. I missed the days where the small things cracked us up. I missed messy hair and ugly pajamas. I missed real. So I made a plan. Fly out to Indianapolis where she had a shoot, book a hotel room in the same place, knock on her door with something dumb and spontaneous. I bought a cheap bow tie from a strip mall and talked the room service guy into letting me carry the cloche myself. Inside, 1 donut, 2 champagne mini bottles, and a note that said, "Let's reset. Door surprise level, medium." I was nervous, but in a good way. I walked that hotel carpet like a dork in a bad indie movie, heart thudding, tie crooked. Room 419. I knocked once. The door opened halfway. Not Angela. A man. Hotel robe. Hair damp like he'd just come out of the shower. He looked at me for half a second like he wasn't sure if I was staff. Then from behind him, I heard her voice. Angela's voice. Casual. Distracted. "Who is it?" She didn't come to the door. She didn't call me by name. The man blinked. I blinked back. I said the only thing my mouth could make. "Wrong room." Then I walked away. I made it back to my room and sat on the floor with my back against the bed like the building might tilt. My hands were shaking, not from rage, just not knowing what to do with themselves. I didn't throw anything, didn't call anyone. I stared at the ceiling and counted the number of dots in the texture until my eyes blurred. I held onto the bed frame like maybe if I anchored myself, I wouldn't sink. At midnight, I heard the elevator ding. That small bell felt louder than a gunshot. I knew she was either coming back or someone else was. Either way, I wasn't opening the door. The next morning, I stared at my phone. No missed calls, no texts, not even a lie. I took the earliest flight out. I didn't go home. I didn't want to see our apartment, her shoes in the hallway, her travel bag still open. I didn't want to be near the room where we stopped being people and started being branding. Instead, I drove. 4.5 hours, all the way to Grandpa's place. I didn't call ahead, just showed up and knocked once. He opened the door and looked at me like he already knew. Then he stepped back and said, "Coffee or silence?" I said, "Coffee." Then I sat down, and when he placed the mug in front of me, I finally said it out loud. "She's with somebody else." I didn't whisper it, didn't drag it out for pity. I just said it flat, like you say the sky's gray or the engine's dead. Grandpa nodded once and set the coffee in front of me like he'd been waiting for that moment to start. He didn't ask for names or details. He didn't cuss. He just leaned forward with both elbows on the table and said, "So what do you want now? Anger, quiet, something in between?" I didn't answer right away. I took a sip, let it burn the back of my throat. Then I said, "I want the truth on the wall so I don't have to carry it alone anymore." He reached for the yellow legal pad he kept by the landline and clicked a pen. "Start sketching," he said. We sat there for over an hour, drawing boxes and arrows and captions in the margins. We called it Love Story. 3 rooms, early frames soft and honest, the middle part, cooling, clean lines, space between bodies, and the end, blunt, quiet, real, no theatrics, just the record, a chronology, not a tantrum. I already had the material, years of it, on hard drives, labeled by date and location, mornings, airports, Angela curling her hair on hotel sinks, Angela not curling it when she felt sick, 100 little pieces that used to be home. You could see the shift if you lined them up. The light got sharper. Her hands pulled away. We stopped being in the same frame even when we were standing in the same room. As for proof, I didn't want anything salacious. I didn't need a shot of her in bed with someone else. I had the hallway photo. The second the hotel door opened, I had lifted my phone and clicked. Habit more than intention. The man's robe loose, his hair wet. The door still partly open. Her voice in the background, that casual, "Who is it?" The room number soft in the corner. It did not shout. It held. It was enough. I showed it to a lawyer, just to be safe. He looked at it like a cop looks at a clean report. "Public hallway," he said. "No faces, no names, no problem. Just change the locks after the opening." I drafted the wall label myself, photographed from a public hallway. Faces and direct identifiers deliberately excluded. Then I called Dagny. She was an old gallery contact, ran install teams for everything from political retrospectives to sculpture shows. She could walk into an empty space and make it hum. I sent her the edit, the full arc, the build-up, the breakdown, the proof. She texted one word back, landing, then a follow-up. "It'll land. Be ready for blowback." While we prepped the exhibit, something strange happened on the side. That print shop photo, the one I took of Grandpa and the kid at the glass, started picking up traction. The juried show published the winners, and somehow the State Museum saw it. They bought a print for $900. But that wasn't the part that stuck. When the jurors' notes were released, one line hit me in the gut. Praised for timing and restraint. I read it 3 times, then once out loud. The blind part mattered to me more than the check. No name on the entry. No one voting for me because of who I was. Just the work standing on its own. Grandpa read that line and smiled slow. "Now you're dangerous," he said. At home, I didn't go back to our bed. I slept on the couch, lights off, phone face down. Angela started texting again. Not full apologies. Little feelers. One said, "Miss you." Another had a photo of a soup she made with the caption, "Dinner was lonely tonight." I stared at the bubbles, let them pop and vanish. I answered once. Just wrote, "Be well." After that, I went quiet. Let her circle. Let the space stay wide. Grace called one afternoon just to check in. She didn't push. Just asked how I was holding up. I said I was busy with a project. She didn't ask what kind. "I figured," she said. Donald's neck deep in his own. He's calling it Letters in Light. That title caught something in my chest. Sat there like a name I used to know. I didn't say anything for a minute. "I think you'd like it," she added. "It's small, thoughtful, quietly ambitious." I smiled at that. "So basically your type." She laughed. "He is a good man, Brody. Probably the best kind. He listens to everything I don't say." I didn't know what to do with that, so I just said, "Then don't let go." But I was lying. I already knew how that story would end. Dagny came down to the gallery space the week before install. We walked the floor, taping outlines on the walls, checking flow. She pointed to the last room and said, "Don't hold back. People feel when you blink." "I'm not blinking," I told her. "I'm just editing with a scalpel." She grinned. Good. Polite art slips past people. The night before the print delivery, I opened the final folder again, checked every crop, checked the colors, even on the black and whites, checked the hallway photo one last time. It held. It told the truth without saying a word too loud. I added one last frame, a self-portrait, shot in the studio, just me and the camera, no color grade, no background polish. It wasn't about looking good. It was about being seen without flinching. I stayed up until 4 the next morning checking placements. Dagny helped lay it out. 3 rooms, 3 temperatures. We taped floor titles in masking tape, just words for now. Room 1 ran warm, natural light, cream walls, early days, mirrors, laughter, airports, sleep. Room 2 flattened out, frames cooler, spaces longer, less color, more control. Room 3 went cold, dim light, grayscale, clean lines like a doctor's office. Dagny stood in the last corner and said, "People are going to shift their weight in here." I said, "Good." I wrote the wall text myself. No fluff. Each room got 4 sentences, no more. I said things like, "This is where we started before we knew what we were risking." And some distances aren't loud, they just last. William read them all and circled one line. "Cut this," he said. "Trust the pictures." I did. Then came the invites. I emailed 5 people: Mom, William, Tess, Grace, Donald. No subject line, just the time, the gallery name, and personal work. I added one more. Angela, opening Saturday, 3 o'clock, personal work. She replied 5 hours later, heart emoji. Then, proud of you. The night before the show, Donald texted, "Can we talk? Boathouse, 8? I almost ignored it, but something told me not to. He was there early, walking tight circles near the benches. I walked up, hands in my jacket, waiting for him to start. "You're not her friend," he said. Voice calm, not angry. I didn't say anything. He kept going. Not really. You're the man she measures her life against. I'm a good guy, Brody, but I'm not her story. I never said a word to her, I said. He nodded. That's the problem. No words, but too many looks. I wanted to argue, say it wasn't like that, but it was. So I didn't lie. He looked past me at the water. I won't make a scene tomorrow. I'll walk out clean, job intact, pride intact. Just be decent if things land the way we both know they might. I swallowed hard. You're solid, Donald. He turned back. So be you. We shook hands like we were closing a deal neither of us wanted to write up. When I got back home, I boxed up Angela's things. Makeup, hangers, half her shoes. I left a note on top. Keys after the opening. I didn't say goodbye. I changed the lock Sunday morning before I could talk myself out of it. The next morning, I double-checked every frame. Tightened the wire on the last one. Read every label like it was a contract. Dagny called the caterer. I confirmed the head count. Then Grace texted, I'll be there. No emojis, just words. I read it 10 times anyway. That afternoon, Mom came by with sandwiches from the corner place we used to hit after school. She handed me mine without asking what I wanted. You look like you haven't slept in a week, she said, handing over a napkin. I'll sleep after Saturday, I told her. She looked at me for a long second. No, you'll start after Saturday. Sleeping's not the same thing. She was right. I didn't argue. That night I left the lights off and sat in the middle of the gallery floor with a notebook. I didn't write anything. Just sat there, breathing in paint fumes and silence. I let the quiet stretch all the way out. When I got up to leave, I glanced at the final wall again, where the proof photo would hang, where the silence would say the rest. I didn't feel ready, but I didn't need to be. I turned off the lights, locked the front, and walked down the hallway without looking back. The gallery smelled like paint and oranges when Dagny and I unlocked the doors. By 2:40, people were already clustering near the title wall. Not talking much, just staring, reading, waiting. Dagny walked the perimeter like a quiet general, then dimmed the lights one click and told me to breathe. I said I would. I didn't. At 3:05, Angela swept in with 2 stylists, a publicist, and a tall guy I didn't recognize, probably from her agency. She wore black again, long sleeves, sleek hair, flawless skin. She moved like everything still belonged to her. She kissed my cheek like it was any other red dot night, like the walls around us weren't stitched with the wreckage. Room 1 worked the way we built it. The lighting was soft, warmer than truth, but just honest enough to sting. A frame of her brushing her teeth while I stood in the mirror behind her, both of us laughing, toothpaste on her chin. Another, her curled up on a train, chin tucked, asleep with earbuds falling out. A pile of breakfasts, bad light, cracked yolks, pajama sleeves. People smiled at first. Then they got quiet. Room 2 turned colder. The frames got tighter, cleaner, empty in the wrong way. Her sitting on a couch scrolling her phone, her feet tucked in but turned away. A wide shot of our apartment. 2 bodies in one space not touching anything. Me caught in the kitchen window, camera in hand. Her in the background looking away. I watched the people more than the pictures. Couples leaned toward each other or shifted apart by instinct. Some whispered. Some didn't say anything at all. William stood near the second corner like a lighthouse, unmoving, letting the current of the crowd break around him. Angela stopped in front of a portrait taken in window light. Just her, soft shadows, a quiet half-smile that didn't reach her eyes. She stared at it for a few seconds and said, "You loved me." I didn't stall. I did. Saying anything else would have been cheap. Room 3 was shoulder to shoulder. Even with the AC running, it felt thick. People didn't talk much. The pacing dropped. I heard one woman whisper, "Oh," and that was it. The wall at the far end held 3 pieces. First, the hallway shot, door slightly ajar, Man in a robe walking away, loose tie, room number blurred into soft bokeh. It wasn't aggressive. It didn't need to be. Next to it was a blank white panel. 2 lines in black. Some limits get named late. Some should have never had to be. Then came the self-portrait. Just me and the camera. Direct, quiet, stripped down. I didn't edit the bags under my eyes or the way my shirt didn't sit right. It wasn't for beauty. It was for truth. I hadn't included names. I didn't need to. Angela's face didn't appear in the final sequence. The story told itself through distance, light, geometry. The label beneath the proof photo read, "This is where a person stops pretending." I saw Tess reach for Nicole's hand near the center bench. I saw Mom stand straighter, her shoulders finally dropping half an inch like she'd been holding them up for too many years. The tall guy from Angela's agency looked at her like a spreadsheet that had just turned red. Angela's publicist came over and lightly touched my arm. "You could have called," she said, not accusing. "Just tired." "I did," I said. She didn't argue. She knew about the missed calls. Grace stood by William the whole time, arms folded. Still, like she was waiting for something she already knew would arrive. Donald wasn't there. I didn't ask why, but I knew. Angela found me near the exit. She looked smaller, like the lights had burned off something she hadn't meant to give up. "Is it over?" she asked. I didn't look away. It ended a while ago. Today we just put the truth on the wall. She nodded like that was the line she'd been waiting for, even if she already knew it by heart. People started clapping, soft and short, that gallery kind of clap. Palms quiet, faces tight. Some smiled like they weren't sure they should. Others didn't smile at all. A woman I didn't recognize stopped by the last wall and turned to me. Her voice was low, steady. "Thanks for not dressing it up," she said. I nodded. "That's all I've got." The next morning I heard a knock, one short, one soft, and by the time I opened the door, the messenger was already gone. He'd left a cream envelope, no return address, my name in Angela's handwriting. Perfect, upright, not a single loop out of place. Inside was one page. "Thank you for the truth." I couldn't stop performing. I don't know who I am off stage. I'm sorry for the harm. That was all. No signature. Just the kind of silence that says more than apology ever could. She didn't fight the divorce. No back and forth. No courtroom drama. The lawyers traded emails. She took her things from the boxes without a scene. Even left the key on top, not inside. That was a kind of mercy I didn't see coming. A week later, a design blog picked up the exhibit. Called it brutal but precise. One trade magazine said it was unethical, and another called it vital. None of them got it right. They buzzed for 5 days, maybe 6, then moved on to a ceramicist who dipped wedding rings in ash. Angela's bookings dropped, then leveled out. She posted a soft note online, black text, gray background, about taking time off to work on the person. I didn't like or comment. I let it sit there untouched. Grace showed up with breakfast the following Saturday. No warning. Just walked in holding 2 bagel sandwiches and a paper bag of apple slices like we were 17 again. She sat at the table like she'd never left, and for 40 full minutes we didn't say anything worth quoting. We talked about the cold snap, a kid who fell off his bike, the new parking meters downtown. It was nothing. It was earned. After we finished eating, she reached across the table and tapped the edge of my coffee cup with her fingernail. "Donald moved out 2 days before the show," she said. I didn't ask why. "He said I deserved a life where my heart didn't have to tug sideways every time someone said your name. He left a note and a set of keys I didn't want." I nodded. "He was a clean man." "He still is," she said. "He just knew." I called Donald that evening. Thanked him for walking out like a man and not a martyr. He said, "Just don't waste it." And I heard the sound of books being shelved behind him. I pictured him at peace. Some people don't fight the current. They just step out of the water. William had a scare the same week. Blood pressure spike, quick trip to urgent care. He shrugged it off and said, "I'm fine. Don't point that thing at me." When I lifted the camera, I took the photo anyway, just in case. His eyes were sharp, his hands steady, but I knew better than to trust only what showed up in the frame. The rec center workshop doubled in size. A new boy started bringing prints of his granddad's garage, tools lined up like soldiers, oil stains shaped like maps. He didn't talk much, but he kept showing up. I scheduled a Saturday field walk. 8 kids came. I slept through the night before it for the first time in months. My dad called. He'd heard some half-true version of the show through his second wife's cousin's kid. "You got time for lunch?" he asked. "Maybe later," I said, and meant next year. He didn't push. Mom didn't comment. That was her version of letting me handle it without a referee. Grace and I started walking at night, just slow loops by the river. Old shoes, light jackets. Sometimes she'd point out constellations she didn't know the names of, and I'd make them up. We didn't push. We just talked until the gnats found us. Then we turned for home. I was at Mom's, halfway through a leftover sandwich, when Tess sent me a text with a key emoji and an address. No words, just the symbol and the location. I didn't have to click the map. I knew where it led. 3B, the door we used to knock on when we were kids needing sugar, tape, or a story. I got there just after 4. The hallway still smelled like lemon cleaner and someone's bad takeout. I didn't knock. The door was cracked, just enough to say this wasn't a test. Inside, the light was warm and soft, the way it gets through old windows near dinner. I heard movement in the kitchen. A mug clinked, water running. Then Grace's voice. "Your mom said you'd stop by." That told me Tess had steered this whole thing. I didn't mind being steered toward this. Grace was standing by the stove, hair up, sleeves pushed back, making tea like it was more science than comfort. She turned, handed me a mug, and nodded toward the little table like it was waiting for us. We sat down at that same wobbly table where I once ate lasagna and said nothing for 10 full minutes. All I could hear was my own breathing and the old fridge buzzing like it never got replaced. Grace broke the silence first. "I have news," she said. "Donald left me a letter. It wasn't asking for another shot, just explaining how it ended. He said he didn't want to hold something that didn't want to stay. I cried when I read it, and then I didn't." I nodded. "He's a clean closer. I respect that." She nodded too, and we just let the space sit there. Then I told her about Angela's envelope, what the note said, how it didn't fix anything, but it didn't throw gasoline either. "It was the kindest version of a hard thing," I said. "That has to count for something." We sat with that for a while. Then we laughed about the tip jar at Jax's and the stupid goal of 750 frames that she made me chase like it meant something. We remembered Grandpa telling me to stop being cute and shoot honest. Neither of us said why that memory mattered, but we both knew. Grace rested her hands on the table and looked at me, eyes sharp but steady. "You were never just my friend," she said. "I know," I said back. Nothing more honest's ever come out of my mouth. I leaned forward a little, careful, not dramatic. "I don't want to be a rebound, or a grand gesture, or a story our moms pass around until it frays. I just want to be your quiet place when you need one, and your sharp edge when you need that too." She didn't answer with a speech. She leaned in and kissed me across the table, slow, sure, grounded. It wasn't some big bang. It wasn't a stage cue. It just landed and stayed. After, we walked outside. The rain from the night before had left puddles all along the curb. Streetlights hadn't turned on yet, but everything glowed soft from the clouds. She reached into her coat pocket and pulled out a small paper boat, folded neatly, the kind you make out of receipt paper while tea steeps and you wait. "I figured you'd show," she said. "So I made this." We knelt together and set it down in the biggest puddle near the storm drain. It bobbed once, leaned hard to one side, then found its balance and kept drifting. I watched it until it hit the far edge and bounced back. "I think we're going to be okay," I said. Grace looked at the boat, then at me. "We already are. Before you head out, let me throw something real at you. If you were in Brody's place, would you have exposed the truth the way I did, or kept the hurt behind closed doors? If you've got the hype feature, please tap it to boost this story so more people can find it. And don't forget to subscribe and hit like. It's a small click that helps us a ton. Drop a comment too, even a quick good story or your own take. Love you guys."
YouTube picked this for you. Tap it. Let's see if they guessed right.